Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my review of Becks. So Becks is an indie film that follows the story of Becks, who after a big breakup with her girlfriend goes back home, and we kind of follow her story from there. This was a film recommended to me by a couple of people on Twitter, and it opened here in Denver this weekend, so I thought I'm gonna go check it out. And ultimately, I was given a mixed bag when it comes to this film. So we're gonna ditch the usual format and just talk about this film, and then I'm gonna touch on why it's still important, even if I didn't completely love it, and give my recommendation. So let's kick things off just by discussing the film. First of all, it does follow a musician, and we do get a lot of time with music in the film. And I think the music is really good for this movie, actually. And Lena Hall, who plays Becks, Rebecca, in the movie, is a great singer. Her voice is fantastic. The guitar is the central part to the whole movie, and it all sounds wonderful, so fantastic job there. And as an actress, she's also very good. All of the acting in this movie, actually, is very good, and it feels very authentic. Christine Lottie plays the mother here. Fantastic. I actually thought she might be the all-star outside of Lena Hall, because I think she really does carry the whole film. And then Mina Suvari, who, have we really seen her in much outside of American Pie? She also was fantastic in this movie, so it was a nice surprise to see her, as well as one of our Fantastic Beasts stars. So there's a really great cast here who all do a really good job. But in the end, this movie actually really reminded me of Lady Bird, and that comes from both the positives and the negatives. Unfortunately, it's not as good as Lady Bird on any aspect, really, but it's definitely a more niche version, but it suffers the same fate. So it looks like an indie. It has a very indie feel to it. The writing, while very good, also very indie. But the big problem here is that the ending completely threw me for a loop. I was not prepared for them to end the movie quite on the note we ended this on, and I think the film really tries to have its cake and eat it too. This film revolves around a very self-centered person, much like Lady Bird did, and her estranged relationship with her mother, who gets a little bit of a villain edit, but really, she's not. She gives a monologue that reads her daughter up and down pretty much verbatim, and it was like oh, okay. But it ends up like Lady Bird, where the mother's not really a good person. The daughter, our main protagonist, is not really a good person. None of the kids are really good people. We're rooting for what could be seen as very negative things to actually happen through a good portion of the film, and then our main character just does something pretty much irredeemable at the end. Something that I was not anticipating, and I thought was just horrible, and made her a horrible person. And it gets really tough because the film doesn't actually have the awareness to know that what she just did is pretty much horrific. Like, it's a horrible thing for her to do. That they still kind of paint it out as she's at peace now, or she's good now. And it just added so hard to the fact that she's a horrible person. That she's just selfish and doesn't think about anybody else but her, how she's feeling, what she wants. And the fact that the film played it out to be like almost a selfless act in the end was just insane to me. And that's what really brought the movie down, is that it was really confused, and that ending punctuated it, and it really just kind of killed the momentum of the film for me and made me really angry leaving the film at what she does at the end. But even before then, it kind of it doesn't have that clear vision. It goes back and forth on what it's about. While being this kind of too cool for school indie, it makes fun of that. It makes fun of our main character, and it's like, oh, she quit being such a snob, and all of this hipstery, indie-ish behavior. It's snobbery. But then it continues to paint out the lifestyle that we're being snobbish toward as boring, as pedestrian. So it's like, what are we saying here? Is it both? are you a snob and is this pedestrian? That's kind of what you're maybe hinting at, but I think it definitely starts taking the side of the hipster. So ultimately, it's a pretty well-made little indie film that feels very much like a little indie film, but it paints its main character out to be such a horrible person without any sort of actual self-realization in there that, I can't fully recommend this film. But it is still an important film to have. First, it focuses on a lesbian character and kind of just has her going through her crap. And that is important because we're seeing all of these award-nominated films. They're all revolving around gay men. And that's often a criticism I actually have of the LGBT community, is that the gay movement is still very much centered around white gay men. When it comes to more realistic, non-sexualized depictions of women in the LGBT community, of lesbians, it's very scarce. And thankfully we had Moonlight last year. Otherwise, focusing on people of color, even in the G portion of it, is a little bit scarce. Forget about getting a B in there. I mean, that's just crazy. And T, much more successful on television than it is in films. So it's nice that we have this lesbian story to put up on the screen that feels real, that feels lived in, and it feels authentic. But it's also important to have complexity in the landscape. This film doesn't feel like any of the other films that we've seen recently revolving around LGBT subject matters. And we can't always have good people in these films. They are not all good people. And this movie actually says, you think just because you're gay that's an excuse to be selfish and not care about anybody else. And we have to remember that is a valid point to bring up in a film, and we need to remember that when we're showing these depictions. Not everyone can be fantastic. Not all the love stories can be wonderful. And while I don't want to continue to just see the same old tortured soul type story told over and over and over again, we also can't have everybody be saints here. And I think Love, Simon, which is coming up, deals with this in a much nicer way and kind of deals with that idea of just because you're dealing with your own internal struggles, or just because you are an oppressed part of society yourself, that doesn't mean you get to be a bad person to other people. I actually think Love, Simon deals with it much better than this film does. But this is a film full of messy people. It's a messy film full of messy people that aren't necessarily likable. It deals with sexuality in a very fluid, real way that I did appreciate a lot of things that it brought to the table. It also has a lot of complex female characters. So that's another plus. That's another reason why this is so important, is it's complex, it delivers a new story. So I want to see it succeed on some level. I just think, unfortunately, it's a mixed bag. And as we get more LGBT films, or as the LGBT cinema expands past like the weird niche, not good films that are out there that are super sexualized and almost parodies, they're so ridiculous, to big blockbustery type films such as Love, Simon coming up, to the awards winning films like Call Me By Your Name and Moonlight, to these niche indies like Beach Rats from last year, and now we have Becks. We're going to start getting clunkers in here. This isn't a clunker, it's just not as good as any of those aforementioned films, or even something like Battle of the Sexes, which was much more generic lesbian story told. So overall, I say check it out. If it is playing at a cinema near you, especially if you're part of the LGBT community, I think it's still so important to go and support this. I would say give it a matinee ticket price, because unfortunately that ending is such a buzzkill to me that I can't give this a full ticket price. But I think it is still important for LGBT members to go and support the community and go see this while it's in theaters. Otherwise, if you're into indie, like music films, I think there's enough in here that you'll like to go ahead and give this a rental. So, that is my review of Becks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click like down below, and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on our latest videos. Also, join in on the discussion. Are you excited to see Becks? Have you ever even heard of it? And what is your favorite indie film about music? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!